To dream the impossible dream. To fight the unbeatable foe. To reach the unreachable star. That's how I feel when I saw Digital Foundry's video comparing the Cyberpunk ray tracing update that's coincidentally going to be coming out on my birthday. And this has just been an interesting journey for myself, for Nvidia, and for ray tracing in general. I had an idea for the journey that Nvidia has been taking with GPUs. In particular, it's the GPU sagas. And I thankfully jumped on this saga with Pascal, aka the 1080 Ti. And that one is dubbed the Golden Age. Because I think everyone agrees that that was probably the best generation to hop onto. Because, you know, it was like base where everybody was using 1080p monitors. No one was looking at 4K at all because it was too damn expensive. And probably at that time, like maybe there were some like relatively like small 4K monitors, but by all accounts, they were just too damn expensive. So everyone was content with a 1080p monitor. And for the games during that time, if you had a capable CPU and you had one of the best like 10 series graphics cards, you were set for a pretty long time. Then the next stage in the saga was the Turing architecture, the 20 series. And I'm glad I wrote this down. The stupid fucking gimmick, and everyone knows it. To those that get that reference, I salute you. But it was kind of true, because at that time, that's when they introduced DLSS 1.0, and that is when they introduced ray tracing, which now at this point looks fucking shit and buggy compared to what the Overdrive ray tracing looks like for the Cyberpunk update, but I digress. That was just when they introduced, ray trace lighting, like realistic high res lighting bouncing off of various surfaces and AI upresing to give you an increase in performance. But the problem was, practically no games used it except what? Control and Shadow of the Tomb Raider. Those were the only two games I could think of at the time when those 20 series cards came out that used it. And I will confess, I was thinking of spending $1,200 like an idiot on a 2080 Ti, thinking, oh, I must have the shiniest new thing. It didn't help the simple fact that around that time I was thinking of getting a 2080 Ti, that Cyberpunk was around the corner, and they teamed up with Nvidia to have like a limited edition yellow fucking RTX 2080 Ti that was only available for like raffles and giveaways. Thankfully, my ass was not blessed with that curse, and I got to stick with the 1080 Ti because, we all know what happened with Cyberpunk. Oh, dear Christ. And then from there, after that overpriced monstrosity of Turing was over and at an end, we had the next stage in the saga. Ampere, aka the mythical unicorn. Mostly due to the fact that you could not get that fucking GPU at all, between scalpers buying it all up in bulk and reselling at exorbitant prices to, miners getting every single card and using it for the fucking crypto boom that was a sign of things to come for the following generation. But beyond all that, I mean, even though they went to a new node, the Samsung node, it looked good on paper, especially as much as I hate to admit it, the 3070, that was on my radar for a little bit because it was an improvement in some ways. You know, it was a $500 GPU with the latest ray tracing and DLSS. It had a little bit less power consumption at 225 watts, at least in terms of what it was being compared to. It was being compared to a 2080 Ti at 250 watts. And it was only consuming 25 watts less, but it was doing 2080 Ti levels of performance for almost 50-60% less. $500 versus $1,200? Fucking hell, it was a beautiful fucking price. Dare I say it, the $700 3080 was fucking beautiful as well. There was only two problems. Less VRAM and a huge increase in power consumption to drive those impressive numbers. And then, of course, we have the elephant in the room, the 3090. Oh yeah, you know, you're getting a lot of RAM, but let's think of it like this here. It was only a 10% increase on average from what I saw, at least from the benchmarks. It was like a minuscule amount increase performance. If I'm right, Ampere or like late, yeah, no, it was Ampere. Ampere was the architecture. It was the generation that taught me that not every single FPS increase is worth the exorbitant price increase, right? Because whenever I was thinking of buying a new computer after the shitness that was Turing, I was thinking, oh, I'm going to buy myself a 3080. Oh, I'm going to buy myself a 5900X CPU, a $600 CPU. I was going to have 32 gigs of DDR4 RAM priced at like $250, $300. I was the idiot that pre-bought a couple of parts, a motherboard and a kit of RAM equaling like $500-$600. Unfortunately, I couldn't fall through with it because the CPUs were also being scalped. So I couldn't even get the freaking CPU upgrade. Thankfully, though, those parts went to a friend and now he's making good use of them. Thank Christ, I'm glad. He needed the upgrade more than me, if I'm being honest. But yeah, I was an idiot, so I was $600 out, even though I got some of it back through I guess, a trade, so to speak. But I got screwed over on that because of the crypto miners and, you know, the scalpers. But as years went on from the Ampere saga, some things came out from, you know, from leaks and whatnot from Moore's Law is Dead, Tom. And Nvidia really made a killing off of those Samsung nodes. To the point, and between, you know, like, supposedly selling some GPUs to miners, like, you could not get an Ampere card. By the time Ampere became in stock and almost at MSRP prices, you're on the cusp of the next generation of GPUs. So you're in this crossroads of, do I buy this dwindling gen's tech at MSRP finally, or do I just wait a few months till the next gen comes out? So it was a weird one. You could barely buy it within the first year unless you're willing to pay marked up prices. Sadly, said friend that I gave this the RAM and the motherboard to, he ended up paying, you know, above MSRP for a 3060 Ti, 8 gigs of RAM, which, oh, I'm sorry for that, man, especially with how games are going to be built nowadays. But that happened, and yeah, it was the mythical unicorn. If anything, I felt like buying like, I think it was an Enter or a Shift keycap. That was just an RTX 3080, like, keycap for a keyboard. And I felt like buying it just to give myself a reminder of, the GPU that could have been, the GPU that was never found. And unfortunately, you know, like, towards the end of its cycle, I mean, at least there were some, like, Founders cards that went on clearance at Best Buy, and I felt like jumping on that bandwagon, because it was, like, a 3080 for, like, $500, and I think, like, 3070 for, like, $350, but sadly, by the time I saw that article, and it's gone. So yeah, Pascal was great. Turing sucked ass. Ampere, you can never find it. So here is the next saga, the next chapter in this glorious story, the Lovelace chapter, aka the crypto fallout. And to those that have been following the GPU stories as of late, we all know why it's called the crypto fallout. Just look at the prices. Now, of course, unfortunately, the best one that's priced in that bracket is the 4090. And I forgot to mention how much the 3090 was, or maybe I did. I don't know. I'm on a roll here right now. The 3090 was $1,500 as opposed to $700 for a 3080. And to tell you how shady Nvidia was, I don't know. Like most people probably didn't mention it, but I was thinking in the back of my head here that a 3080 was like relative to my GPU about 50% increased performance. Depends on the game though. Some games had way more performance. But assuming that in terms of like raster performance, it was the 3090 was a 10% increase, you'd be thinking to yourself, well, wait a minute, SLI tech was around during that time, during Turing, during Pascal. If you were to just combine two 3080s, yeah, the power consumption would go up a little bit more. Fuck ton more. But the performance would probably go up rather well. There was no SLIing for the 3080 down. But coincidentally, SLIs were allowed for the 3090, the $1,500 GPU. That got me thinking a little bit. But anywho, now we're on to Lovelace, the 4090. Now, if you thought you were a fucking idiot buying the 3090, or God forbid buying the 2080 Ti, and you went for the 3090 in terms of performance, oh, get ready for a kick to the balls. The 4090 was the biggest fucking leap in graphical power imaginable, to the point where it could even run some games at 4K triple FPS without breaking a fucking sweat. I saw the benchmarks. I was like, holy fucking shit. This 4090 was a beast in and of itself. It fucking spat on the 3090. And the price was only a modest $100 increase to what you were getting in terms of just pure raw performance. Sadly, though, yeah, the other GPUs followed suit. The 4080, you'd be thinking, oh, the 4080 will be $700-800 maybe. No, $1,200 fucking dollars. The price of a 2080 Ti. Nvidia had their wish. Granted, they were going to be raising the GPU prices across the board. And it was basically just, it was basically in response to the fact that we're making hand over fist in terms of just, like selling it to miners and whatnot. And and a lot of like people saw it from like various YouTubers. Like they saw, like Nvidia saw that scalpers were charging so much in terms of scalp prices and people were buying them, especially miners. They said, fuck it, we'll cut out the middleman. And they basically said, fuck it, we'll just charge exorbitant prices for this. Now, obviously, some of it, is in response to the fact they took a deal from Samsung, they left TSMC, so TSMC is spanking good old Jensen on the ass here and going, oh yeah, we're going to fucking charge you a little bit more for buying this expensive 4nm node, going from 8nm Samsung, which is like a completely different node compared to what TSMC has. But yeah, they were paying a lot more for it. And no doubt the GPUs cost way more to, make, especially for the performance, like a 4nm node from TSMC, whatever coolers they had to make to cool down these massive increases to power consumption. So yeah, 4080 costs a fuck ton. And of course, there was that little bit tidbit when the 40 series was revealed. There was the 16 gig and 12 gig 4080s. And at first, I was thinking, oh, it would be a $1,200 4080, and there was like a huge price decrease for like the 12 gig. I'm like, okay, those that can't afford the 16 gigs on a 4080, they'll just buy the 12 gig, no problem. Still a little bit too expensive for my blood, but the performance would be the same, right? Right? No, it fucking wasn't. I saw the fucking slide they were showing, and they were showing like the different ones, the 4090, 48, 16 gig, and 48, 12 gig. And unless you were like a newbie in the PC market, and you're like, oh wow, big numbers go brrr, you saw something in particular that stood out. You saw the CUDA core count. And obviously, if, like there was two 48s, like it had the same name 48 16, 48 12 gig. The only thing that changed was the RAM. The RAM has no visual impact in terms of like what the raw performance is, unless you're increasing the resolution and you exceed the VRAM limitation, therefore there'll be stutters, like what people are going through for The Last of Us Part 1 and Hogwarts Legacy. Rest in peace, those 8 gig fucking cards. You will not be lasting the next couple years. But you look at it and you saw, wait a minute, there's a CUDA core discrepancy. And if you're knowledgeable enough in terms of like what the CUDA cores mean and what that can mean for raw performance, you slammed on the brakes. You went, Burr! Why the fuck does the 12 gig have less CUDA cores than the 16 gig? And a lot of people called it out immediately. They called out Nvidia on their bullshit to the point where they released a press release. They were unlaunching it. They redubbed the 12 gig 48 as a 4070 Ti, and the rest is fucking history. Nvidia was hoping to pull a fast one on the users. Thankfully, they caught up on it. And now we've reached this peculiar road in the Lovelace saga. It's still ongoing, and there's a 4070 non-Ti releasing for $600 in the next couple of days. It looks great on paper, but the price is still too much. A lot of people are saying it's supposed to be like a 4060 in terms of performance, like in terms of like what the node is, like the AD103 or whatever. I'm not so sure. I'm not too well versed in it, but it's like Nvidia's just been really fucking up in terms of the pricing. It's just response to the fact there was so much money being made from scalpers and miners and the inflated MSRP prices. Nvidia wanted to bank on it, and we've seen the result. 4090s sold like hotcakes, but 4080s are sitting on fucking shelves because it's too damn expensive. And a part of me just hopes that like the 4070 sits on shelves as well, because I have the 4070 as a backup plan. I'm glad I waited, because the 4070 basically shits on the 3070 in every aspect except pricing. If I were to get lucky enough on like a pricing cut for the 4070, I could see that being a backup plan. Until the next saga begins, which I'll get into in a minute. But yeah, and here we are right now with the cyberpunk ray tracing, and this is what basically spurred me to make this little bit of a ramble here. I'm looking at what they're dubbing the ray tracing overdrive, and I saw like bits and pieces on Nvidia's website how it's going to be enabling full path tracing. Like that's the whole thing. It's path tracing. It's like full on ray tracing, which just makes me wonder, like, why was it called ray tracing? Like, if they were saying, like, this is what ray tracing was supposed to be, like, why is it, like, for the past several years, we're saying this is what, like, ray tracing was capable of, but then out of the blue, they show off path tracing. Again, I'm not fully versed on the whole ray tracing and path tracing. I don't know the whole, ordeal is, but I have a sinking suspicion, because this is another thing they pulled off during the whole Lovelace saga here, is that they have this new gen of DLSS called DLSS 3.0, and it has frame generation, basically adding in fake frames in between the other normal frames to give you a massive boost of performance. But obviously it's the whole thing, it's a fake frame, so there could be some artifacts and glitching, which is why I'm still against DLSS, to be honest, because I want the pure raw native resolution being given to me, even if there is a performance decrease. That's why I've been waiting so long. I've been waiting till I can play a various amount of games at like 4K native, but unfortunately, seeing how some games have been going lately with like 4K native, I might still have to stick with 2K, but I digress. Seeing DLSS 3.0 with the frame generation, it sounds good on paper. It gives you a massive increase to the frame rate, but yeah, here's the thing where Nvidia fucked up on. That shit was only available in the 40 series of graphics cards. So basically, if you spent like above MSRP on a 30 series graphics card, sorry, your shit's outdated. If you want to take advantage of DLSS 3.0 that was only in like 2 to 3 fucking games, you had to upgrade to a 40 series. It was one of Nvidia's slimy ways to try and make people to upgrade from like a 20 or a 30 series up to a 40 series and pay this outrageous price. And here's the thing. I have a sinking suspicion this may happen again. This is just a theory. This is just my headcanon. But if it turns out to be true, oh, I'm going to be punching the goddamn fucking wind in my goddamn... I'll be punching the air in my room going, God fucking damn it, I hate it when I'm right. This is what I'm thinking will happen. They're talking about path tracing. From a leak from a Red Gaming Tech, I believe, Paul, he was saying that the next generation of GPUs, Blackwell, we'll get into that in a minute, is supposed to be like further expanding upon ray tracing and path tracing. I get the sinking suspicion because there were slides going around at 4K native ultra with fucking overdrive path tracing or ray tracing for Cyberpunk. It was only getting 15 frames. But ooh, if you enable fucking DLSS 3.0 somehow, you go up to a fucking 100 FPS. How the fuck that's capable of doing at 4K gaming? I don't fucking know. I feel like Nvidia is once again showing off some weird ass slides and we have to wait till like official fucking benchmarks come out. Wait, people, fucking wait! But I digress. I have the sinking suspicion that there's going to be like some tech under the hood for ray tracing, similar to what happened with DLSS 3.0 with the fucking frame generation. There's going to be something under the hood for a massive increase in performance of ray tracing that's going to make Nvidia go, oh yeah, if you want to see like I guarantee, like in terms of native performance, the ray tracing and path tracing is going to go for the roof. It's probably going to be like the biggest jump in like all the fucking iterations combined. It's probably going to be like, okay, you'll actually be able to do Cyberpunk at 4K native overdrive ray tracing at 60 FPS or above. Because I'm seeing the image comparisons between even Psycho ray tracing the overdrive. It's beautiful. Thank you, Digital Foundry. It looks beautiful. Like, seeing that, I'm like, that's what Cyberpunk should have been from the start. But sadly, it wasn't. But I'm predicting that Nvidia is going to pull some bullshit where it's like, oh yeah, you want this massive increase of frame rate when using ray tracing and path tracing? You gotta buy our new GPU. They're going to gatekeep us from this massive increase to performance for ray tracing and go, oh, you want this fucking, the best in fucking tensor cores? You want the 4th generation of tensor cores that make a mockery of that ray tracing setting? Fuck you, pay me. I'm already predicting it. And I'ma fucking hate it. But, all that withstanding, assuming I didn't forget anything, now we're on to the final saga. The upcoming chapter in this tale of Nvidia bullshit. Blackwell. The impossible dream. I have a dream that I will be able to, like, after what Nvidia went through, because it seems like there's, going off of Hardware Unboxed, they were making a comment about when you should upgrade your GPU, right? And they were saying it goes in cycles, right? Like, Pascal went really well, it sold phenomenally well, Turing comes out overpriced, no one buys it. Nvidia has a response to that with Ampere. You know, they went to Samsung, they got some cheat nodes, they're on the side of the gamer, so to speak. They weren't. And they were affordably priced. $500, $700. I mean, $1,900 withstanding, it was all fucking affordably priced. It was all affordable pricing. The only problem was you couldn't get a hold of the fucking GPU. But beyond that, it was affordable. And now, you know, because it sold like gangbusters, everyone was buying a fucking card that didn't exist. Now the pricing is exorbitant again for the 40 series. Lovelace. And now they're sitting on fucking store shelves. I have the dream. The impossible dream. That with a 50 series card that, unlike with this 40 series where we had to wait a year for the 70 class to come out, I'm hoping it'll be just like Ampere, where the 70 class will come out within the first couple months. I have the impossible dream that there will be a 50-70 card with 48 to 49 levels of performance, 16 gigs of RAM, the latest in cutting-edge DLSS and ray tracing capabilities, all for a low 200-watt consumption card. Appropriately priced at $500 to $600. I'm not. 500 is like fucking wishful thinking. I'm predicting $600 to $650 because of the massive increase from going from like 38 levels of performance to 4080, getting the latest bells and whistles, getting 16 gigs of RAM, so you can at least guarantee that will last you the rest of this console cycle, maybe even the next, and a respectable 200-watt power consumption, all for around $600 to $650, along with God knows whatever updates there are to DLSS, and again, being able to like maybe have that path tracing update and make ray tracing not as much of a fucking dip in performance to truly bring out beauty in video games. But as I said, it's the impossible dream. And also, hopefully DisplayPort 2.0, he'll have GDDR7, at least that's what the leak is saying, that's what I'm hoping for. That's my dream for it. But knowing Nvidia, it won't be like that. With my luck, the 5070 won't come out till like another year after that. It's probably going to be $700 to $800, and who knows? We'll just have to wait and see. But I just wanted to go on a little bit of a journey, explaining, like how these fucking cycles went. And we're kind of in a dark time. I would dare say it's worse compared to like what the previous gen was. Because, I mean, your only choice if you're trying to get into the PC market at this point is to buy a used card. Because now it's like the older cards, those are hard to get. I mean, your best bet, if you don't care about sides, you would have to go for AMD. Because I keep going back to Amazon, and I don't know who this group is exactly, but I go back to it. 6950 XT. XFX Speedster Radeon 6950 XT. As far as I'm concerned, that's above a 3080, like close to 3090 levels of performance. 16 gigs of RAM, and it's $650. Would you rather pay $600 for a 4070 with 38 levels of performance, or just pay $50 more, get yourself an extra, 30% increase in RAM, going from 12 gigs to 16. Yes, you will be facing a modest increase in power consumption, but I mean, in terms of future-proofing, that 6950 looks like a better deal on paper. Costs a little bit more, yes, but it should last you a little bit more in the long run. But yeah, it's like you have no choice but to buy a used card or like something from AMD, because as far as I'm concerned, their cards are still being produced this day. In terms of like 30 series products from Nvidia, it doesn't look like there's like anything at all now. And if they are, it's either still at MSRP or maybe they're starting to get marked up now because of, scarcity, but who knows? I'm just hopeful that Blackwell turns out well. Nvidia learns from their mistake. And hopefully when Blackwell comes out, that will be the time that I upgrade. This is the mantra I've had, because I've done some somewhat improvement in my life to hopefully get a little bit extra money here. I won't say what. But hopefully from some like budget checks and whatnot, I can hopefully have the money by next year to get an upgrade. And this is my mantra. Blackwell, Zen 5 V-Cache, glossy monitor. That's my mantra. Blackwell, V-Cache, glossy. Because I've seen what the the 7800X 3D is doing. And I've seen some of the benchmarks, even comparing it to like 7700X. And dare I say it, at 2K Gaming, this fucking CPU is putting to shame various CPUs in terms of performance. Like obviously, it's based on like a case by case basis in terms of what game you're playing. But depending on what game you're playing at 2K resolution, I'm hoping at max settings. I'm hoping that's the case. You're getting like 30, 40, 50 FPS increase. Now, whether that be between the IPC gains based on generations to the Vcache actually doing its work, there's a huge uplift in performance. And it just makes me wonder, like from the leaks I've been hearing about Zen 5, I do wonder, like how much of an increase there is between the IPC gain increase and what a third generation of Vcache will be like. I wasn't on the Vcache bandwagon because I was thinking, oh, the power consumption is a little bit too much for my taste. But seeing from some benchmarks as to like how much power consumption is being used on the 7800, it's respectable in my opinion. And I'm still on a fucking 4790K. I haven't even dared to see how much consumption that CPU is taking in some modern games right now. But hopefully between a node increase and, if they don't go crazy with the clocks they've been doing and they can somehow squeeze out some energy efficiency, especially looking at like what people are saying about the efficiency from the 7800, I'm hoping a fucking 8800X 3D, or if they do it, maybe a 6-core with Vcache? That would look beautiful, because that's what I've been hoping for. I've been hoping for a contender from the 5600X. That's been on my mind for the longest time because of the energy efficiency. I'm hoping not Nvidia, AMD just comes out, at least next gen, with a Zen 5 6-core processor, similar power consumption to a 5600X, but they slap on some Vcache. If they manage to wow me with a respectable increase to clock speed, IPC gains, and power consumption similar or greater than a 5600X, but they slap on some Vcache for even more impressive performance gains, that's my impossible dream. Blackwell, Zen 5 Vcache, and hopefully a glossy monitor to at least get some clarity improvements on a 2K resolution. Dare to dream. But yeah, I just wanted to ramble a little bit there. You get this idea out of my fucking noggin. You let me know what you guys think will happen with the next generation of computer parts. How much do you think they're going to gorge out of our fucking wallets? What do you think the performance increase will be? What are your hopes and dreams? Tell me your impossible dream. And usual YouTube spiel. Like, dislike, comment, subscribe, yada, yada, yada. That is the Rambling Manager signing out once again. Y'all stay safe. See ya.